All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Big Blue Report featuring that guy, the two-time Super Bowl champion and former defensive captain of the New York Football Giants, Jonathan Casillas, or we call him JC for short, and the guy who is not under any contract problems right now, that's Ryan Darlington, the professor. He's with us. And guys, with Media Day coming on Wednesday, camp opening on Tuesday, the talk's all going to be about Saquon Barkley, not under contract with the New York Giants. And not only is he not under contract, but as of yesterday, we're recording this on Thursday. Wednesday, he hit the podcast scene, and man, he let it rip on the Giants. It went from an easy, it is what it is tweet to, if I have to sit out, I'm going to sit out. JC, you've been in this business, the football business, for a long, long time. Have you seen a situation like this before?
Not really. I think what Saquon's doing, and it's definitely not intentional, but I think he's stressing a lot of New York Giants fans out. You know, I think he's starting to kind of float over to the dark side, you know, in terms of his appreciation by the fans, you know, and I don't know what's his, I guess, intentions on doing that, but to say the things that he said, and for people that don't know, I got it here, right here. I'm going to read it, Randy. That's okay. I won't say any of the expletives, of course.
Oh, go ahead.
Quote, unquote. My leverage is I could say, F you to the Giants. I don't think it's going to be free that he used either.
No, probably not.
I could say how valuable I am to the team. I won't show up. Anybody who knows me knows that's not something I want to do. I am prepared to take it to this level. Am I prepared to take it to this level? I don't know. Kind of a passive aggressive, but almost very aggressive tweet, right?
That was the, I'm not angry, you're angry type of thing, type of attitude. And, I appreciate where he's coming from. Like, I understand his frustration, but I think there's part of Saquon, and I think the Giant fan base that's not looking at this from a business perspective. That's just me.
Yeah, oh, for sure. 100%. And look, you have to, this is the human side of it, right? This is him saying, I feel disrespected, and there's really nothing he can do this year because that time where the Giants could have made a deal with him has passed already. So he has to play on the tag or what he's saying. He'll say F his teammates and not show up to camp. Definitely don't think that's going to happen. But what I think this is, Randy, I think this is a cry for don't do this shit to me next year. I think that's what this is. Because I think we all know it doesn't really benefit him to sit out, and lose $10 million, lose a year of, I would say, eligibility, right, as being one of the better players in the NFL, kind of getting that rust on him, because I haven't seen too many guys that just takes off a whole year and come back the same at his age at that running back position. We just haven't seen that, so I hope it's that. I hope it's to say, like, don't do this to me next year, because the Giants probably will do it to him next year, because as we've seen this year, it's not about what Saquon wants, is what the Giants feel is best for the team. And the value at running back has drastically declined. We've been talking about that ad nauseum, I feel like. And the value for Saquon is just not going to be existent because the market of running backs is dead.
Yeah.
Let's just call it what it is.
Yep. I feel like, I think the most frustrating part about this for me is that the Saquon that we're hearing right now is not the Saquon we're used to, right? And I don't think it's the Saquon that's deep down in there, right? I think somebody got in his ear and somebody started talking to him about how valuable he was, and it took over his mentality from what it used to be, which was team. I still think, if you think about every quote that he gave leading up to the offseason, all through the season, leading up to the season, all through the season, through the postseason, team, love this place, love these guys, I'd die for any one of these guys, yada, yada, yada. Now, all of a sudden, it's fuck these guys. not supposed to say stuff like that.
You can say that. We're not FCC. He can't say that on Sunday mornings, but we can say that here.
I can say it on Sunday mornings. Everybody knows I'm a heathen. It's okay. But so, I mean, I guess at the end of the day, now what we're hearing now is so drastically different from what we've heard before. And I don't think what we're hearing now is truly what's inside. I think he got into his mind about what he was worth. Don't come off of that position. Don't actually give an inch. I mean, when you hear about where they were at the end of these contract negotiations, they were $1 million or $2 million off, right? I mean, it was very, very close, but the Giants weren't willing to give any more, and he wasn't willing to give any more. So it could have been $5 and it wouldn't have made a difference, right? They just weren't going to see eye to eye on it. So, okay, we've done what we can do, right? If you want to play this year, you'll play on the tag. The Giants know that they have the leverage here. He's not going to, I mean, I think we all believe it would be a very bad move for him, kind of a career limiting move for him to not play on the tag next year. And then JC, like you said, we've got to see what happens next year. But quite frankly, even if he has a monster season, he's a year older. Are they going to sign him up to a long-term deal next year when he's a year older and he's got another year on the treads? No, there's no way they're going to do that. So it's probably going to have to be a tag and trade, or maybe they give him a shorter deal and let him play out the rest of his time as a Giant on that shorter deal.
And I think the problem is, though, again, Joe Schoen and Brian Dable establishing the culture that they're trying to establish. Saquon is sort of a free agent at the wrong place at the wrong time, because when you're trying to rebuild an organization, because that's what the Giants are really doing right now. They had years of futility. They were a pretty dismal organization for a long time. Only one playoff appearance since winning the Super Bowl and back in 2000 and the 2011 season. It's tough. You're rebuilding an offensive line that Eli Manning couldn't survive under. And you went through how many coaches since Daniels got here? You had since Tom Coughlin left, you've had Ben McAdoo, you've had Pat Shurmur, you've had Joe Judge, and now you're on Brian Dable, and that's all under a 10-year span. You know what I mean? That's a lot of turnover.
Yeah.
I joked that I said Joe Schoen is cleaning up from the ghosts of GM pasts. He's cleaning up Jerry Reese's messes. He's cleaning up Dave Gettleman's messes. And it's not an easy situation to do. And Barkley got caught in the crosshairs.
Not get this organization into the same mess that Gettleman got us into, which was overspend for guys, make I don't know if they were emotional decisions or what, but at the end of the day, he wasn't as careful with the money as he needed to be. So even if there's just this little bit of wiggle room, Shane's not willing to wiggle in that space because he's trying to save this organization from the kinds of things that Gettleman did to it when he was at the helm.
Yeah.
That's my impression. JC, do you agree with that? I mean, I don't, that's just my.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, it's not about one player, and it's just such an unfortunate situation where this running back market is. I keep saying it over and over again because it sucks. You got so many of the top guys that, that carry the workload for the whole organization, and these guys, I'm talking about the Josh Jacobs, even Ezekiel Elliott and everything that he's done for those teams that team down in Texas. And Saquon Barkley he's a consensus top 5 running back. Like there's no one that doubts that whatsoever, and he's sitting there, betting on himself, trying to go ahead and get the maximum money that he could possibly get, because the reality of it is there is no long-term deal for Saquon and New York Giants. That's really the reality. And because they couldn't get something worked out, and he stayed on this franchise tag, I think that's stamped, and they're standing on it. It's not going to happen next year if it didn't happen this year, no matter what year he has. And if he happens to get hurt, man,
that's it.
His value, even this year, was a lot lower than he thought, and even we thought, as fans. And not just the Giants fans, just football fans in general that want to see guys get paid for the value that they're worth.
Yeah.
If he ends up getting hurt, I'm talking about a rolled ankle, miss a game or two, where his play has declined a little bit. His worth would be, his value would be exponentially decreased, which is insane, and I hope there is some money out there for him in the future. But now taking a look at it, even if he plays on his franchise tag, if he has a 2,000-yard rushing season, I say that might be the only way. And he's possibly the offensive player of the year.
Yeah.
But even if he puts up the numbers last year, if he stays with the Giants will franchise tag him again. And if he decides to leave, if that's even possible, somebody's going to give him a deal that's not going to be anything close to what he was getting offered this year at all.
Yep. If he gets hurt, it will prove the Giants right, and every one of us should feel like garbage about that. Right?
Yeah.
Nobody wants the Giants to be right in this situation. Everybody wants to see him succeed. It really bothers me that they couldn't make up that $2 million, right? To keep him happy, to keep him here for a 3-year deal. They were talking about a 2 or 3 year deal. It wasn't monstrous, but because it couldn't happen, because there was a gap of $2 million, because it couldn't happen this year, it's not going to happen down the line.
And not only that, but I don't know where the $2 million, if it was $2 million or where it was, where they left it off. But at the same time, look, the Giants, again, are running a business. They have to do what's best for them. And if Saquon Barkley, I hate, like, people keep on saying, he doesn't have leverage. He doesn't have leverage. Well, let's say his holdout goes into the season and they start those first 4 games. They start 1-3. You don't think they're going to have to be quick to want to try and make a deal with him?
Can they make a deal still?
I'm not 100% sure if they can or they can't. But they're going to want to get him in there, and they'll find a way to make something happen to make him happy.
They could restructure the franchise tag.
Yeah,
really.
Yeah. So
they can't sign him. They can't sign him to a long-term deal. But my understanding is that they can restructure the franchise tag a little bit.
Yeah, I'm at a point right now with this situation, and again, I'm looking at it from a professional standpoint. I'm looking how my week is going to be next week, over at the facility. It's almost like JC, you've been in that auditorium when one topic sort of dominates. They want to end those press conferences as quickly as they possibly can, because the Giants.
He'll take one more. Take one more.
Yeah. But Dion, he's only taken 2 questions so far. Yep, we know he's only taken 2 questions. We're done.
They done messed it up for everybody.
Be honest with you, my question would be on the first day to Joe Shane and Brian Dable is, how do you think your progress of rebuilding this offensive line has been? Because this is the most stable that it's looked. And the first time in a long time, you've had hope for this offensive line in a very, very long time, where you have Andrew Thomas, who's established himself as one of the best in the league at his position. You have Evan Neal, who has promised that you hope that he's going to grow into that position and have the same progress that Andrew Thomas has. You drafted a young center. You have some guards there. You have to see what you have, but that can be the next step. It's not going to happen overnight, but there's a lot of progress here. And it's a shame that that's not going to be highlighted, because we're going to be talking about Saquon Barkley and the fact he's not going to be at camp for the first couple of weeks. And that, to me, is where it's like, I don't understand. They're going to say we're not going to talk about contract negotiations. And they're going to try every single way to try and get a different answer out of them on Wednesday, because it's going to be both Dable and Joe Shane on Wednesday. Yeah. So that's what it's going to be. And every Giant fan has the right to be upset that this didn't get done. But sometimes you can't think with your heart. You have to think with your mind and think from the business perspective. The Giants do not want to commit to a guy who has been injury prone for the first 5 years of his career. He played 16 games twice. Last year, he sat out the last game of the season against the Eagles. He's played 13 games twice, but he struggled because he was hurt. And he played under Joe Judge, so you already know that there's already a handicap there. So there's just.
It sucks though, because he's consensus top 5. I mean, he's a top 5 running back. I mean, this is talent, and I think the thing that I'm concerned most about is that even if he does decide that he wants to play on that tender and he goes into the locker room, the entire team mentality, all that love that was feeling and really driving the team last year goes right out the window.
He is a team guy. He's always said the right thing. He's PR trained. He's sacrificed for this team. And does he deserve to get paid? Yes.
Of course.
He deserves. JC, in this business, guys deserve their bag. They do. They deserve their bag. There's a lot of guys who do it. There's some guys who never get it.
But you got to admit there's some sour grapes here. I mean, he's kind of pissed right now, and he's letting everybody know about it.
And you can hear that from that podcast quote that I just read. Yeah. Like, that's uncharacteristic of Saquon Barkley. Right. That's uncharacteristic from anybody on this roster. Mm-hmm. I think the coaches and Joe Shane has done a great job in bringing in high character guys. And, Saquon was a guy that I said was a locker room guy, a character guy, a guy that, is culture in itself. And he bought in right away. And that's easy for other guys to buy in. Now, if Saquon comes in and everything's okay, meaning he's not, complaining to the media, he's out there running angry like I said he would if he stays on the franchise tag, which we all love. But as soon as we start to hear anything negative come out of his mouth at all, now we're going to have to be worried. Because now you got a guy who, like I said, is culture in itself. He's a leader, a natural leader, not only just the way he carries himself and how he plays the game, but he's one of those vocal leaders as well in the locker room that when he speaks, everybody shut up. So when he's bitching, everybody's listening as well.
Yeah.
And that's not going to be good. I don't think that's going to happen. But if it does, man, that's not going to be good for the New York Football Giants.
That's for sure. Time will tell.
And I was about to ask, too, one, how much of a distraction can this become? Because now your players have to start answering, his teammates have to start answering questions, which they're going to get coached about, by the way. And two, the other part of it, too, is now where do you go from here? That's like you've been in that locker room before, JC, not when someone's held out because of money or because of the franchise in that situation, but how much does it affect if there's an angry teammate and a guy who's considered leader?
It depends on who's doing it, right? Who's the guy that's whatever, being a problem, being a cancer, whatever the case may be. And this is not the guy you want doing that. This is a guy who's been there for actually a long time compared to the rest of the roster.
Yeah.
A known leader, top 5 at his position, a vocal leader, a guy who leads by example, how he goes to work, how he carries himself, how he handles himself in media. Now, that's kind of getting stirred up right now, especially from that last, comment that he spoke in that podcast, and look, I just hope that he does show up first day and he does go out and say the right things when it comes to, that's 6 days away, right? To where he's out there. He's going to be out there with the team, most likely. And if he sits out, it's like, why? Right? I know they got the new thing where, I don't know if it's new, but I think the last CBA where guys can sit in and actually, go to training camp and not practice and stuff like that and avoid fines. And look, I don't know what he's going to do. I hope he just shows up and then maybe it's one day. Because if he shows up, there's only going to be one day that people speak about it.
Yeah.
But if he doesn't show up, it's going to go on the entire training camp until he shows up. Yeah. And I just hope it's the prior, right? The former.
And go ahead, Ryan.
I don't think he's going to show up. I don't think he's going to put the wear and tear on himself
in training camp.
In training camp, because I mean, training camp sucks,
right?
Right? I mean, when you're getting to that, when you're getting to the point where you're 5 and 6 years into the league in a position that I mean, he's a running back. He knows that it's a lot of wear and tear on that position. He also knows that he's got a year in the blocking schemes. He's got a year in the system. He doesn't need to do as much of that kind of mental game, or at least in his own mind, I'm sure, to still be game ready when it comes time to be game ready. So, I mean, it's almost, it allows the dust to settle, right? For him anyway, because it's high emotionality. We're 4 days removed from the situation, right? When he did that podcast, it was 2 days removed from the situation. He's still pissed. Maybe with a few more days, right? The dust will settle a little bit. He'll kind of get he'll keep training. He's been training this whole time. We saw the video of him squatting, 800,000 pounds, all this kind of stuff. So, I mean, he'll be ready, but it's, I don't think he's going to be there for most of camp, if any of it. I mean, he may show up after the last preseason game, but
I don't think that's good. Like, if he doesn't show up right away, and it's not about him getting game reps, because we know he's not going to get game reps if they had any type of plans of him getting game reps anyway. It's preseason. He's one of the best running backs in the league. You're not going to play him in preseason.
That's true.
But he's going to be in the locker room, which is ultra important and paramount to this team's success, because that's something we talked about last year, is how the locker room was, right? After that Indianapolis game, I told you I hung out with the guys, and I was so impressed how they were just like a brotherhood and like a family. And everybody was out hanging out together. You had the old lineman there, and when the old linemen come out, that's how it's a party, when the old linemen coming out. Old lineman was there, Dan,
big boys.
And I just fear that if Saquon doesn't show up right away, now that becomes a distraction. Not a distraction now, because there's no football being played.
Right.
But if everybody's getting that question about where's Saquon, how you feel about Saquon, who's going to step up, now you're putting stress on Breida, you're putting stress on Brightwell, you're putting stress on Gray, you're putting stress on Daniel Jones, the receivers, Darren Waller. Now the defense is stressed. Oh, you guys got to hold up, do this and that, because, the best player is not there on offense. And everybody's going to get asked that question, especially the leaders in that locker room. And I think that's when it becomes a distraction. Maybe somebody slips up and says something that maybe he's thinking in the back of his head that maybe he's not right PR-wise, right? Who knows what can happen. And like I said, I just hope he does show up, because I don't see any positive coming out of him sitting out. And I'm talking about, it's done. You lost. You lost. You got the short stick in the draw, right? You short end of the wishbone, whatever the quote is. You lost.
Right.
Now show up and show everybody what type of running back you are. And you might not ever get paid for it. That's what you got to know going into this year if you're Saquon Barkley.
How much, or to what degree can his brothers on that team influence his decision to come out? Can they be calling him and be like, "Come on, bro, we want to have you back. Come back into the fold."
I think, because this is at this point, yes, business is business, but at this point, this is just like
done.
This is like personal right now. He's like, he feels, I think, personally not sabotaged, but almost like, smitten. He feels smitten by the New York Giants. And if he even threw his teammates in there, which is like, why would you even do that? In the quote, and it's, I think the guys are going to come have his back. I think they're going to be guys that's going to call him like, "Yo, please, bro, we need you, bro." Like, I think Sterling is going to be one of those guys that does it. Andrew Thomas, even though he's young, he's one of those guys. Daniel Jones, of course, and it's totally up to Saquon, man. And I hope they do convince him, because I got a lot of high hopes for the Giants. That's including Saquon in that equation.
It has to, yeah. And it's funny too. You just mentioned Shep, and Saquon is the second longest tenure Giant behind Shep.
It's crazy.
Yeah, Shep's the old man now. But it's funny too. You say that, and you also have to remember, back in March when Daniel got his deal, we were 5 minutes away from Saquon getting the money. Because if that deal didn't go through for Daniel was going to get the franchise tag. Saquon was going to get the contract. I had someone say to me that this is a byproduct of them not picking up the 5th year for Daniel. And I said, you have to look back at when Joe Shane got here and Brian Dable got here, they had no idea what they had in Daniel Jones, and they did not want to financially commit to him at that point in time. It's just the way it is. That you can't commit to him.
But if they would have had the 5th year, they would have had the 5th year option. If they would have had the 5th year option, they'd went the 5th year option for Daniel Jones, and Saquon would have got franchised anyway.
Yeah. It's true. I guess you're right.
And then they might have kept Love. They might have kept Love.
Yeah. I like how we're coming up with different equations now. Oh, but we could have done that.
We got our hindsight glasses on. We're ready. We're ready to run.
Armchair quarterback. Guys, you're listening to the Big Blue Report here through backsportspage.com on all your podcast platforms. Jonathan Casillas, Ryan Darlington. I'm Randy Zelia from Backsportspage. And guys, we're talking Saquon Barkley. And I got to tell you, man, like one other view I just look at this from, and you guys sort of said it, the guys who've been on this team with him for the last 2 to 3 years, they look up to him. And you guys are talking about how he sort of spat out, and he's got a little bit of venom in him. This is the guy who's been walking that company line, and even said in his press conference at his camp that he had that family business. We take care of our own family business. But this is also the same family business that usually lets guys go a year or two early at the end of their career. Justin Tuck, O.C. Umenyiora, legendary Giants all let go of their contract early from the Giants and go play elsewhere to finish their career. The Giants are known for letting guys walk away early than they instead of 1 year too late. I'm not saying that this is that situation, but I'm looking at the big picture of the organization.
That's the business. That's the business of the NFL. They're just doing business how business is done. And somebody gets the short end of the stick, and it has to be, and it happens to be the best player on the New York Giants offense, if not the second best. And man, like I just keep thinking, like, man, if he be there, like the Giants are golden. If he got that deal and the Giants are golden, and they could have figured this thing out. And for me, more importantly, I really care about Saquon's future. Like we saw what happened with Le'Veon Bell. He ended up sitting out, and then he signed with the Jets, and he was a shell of himself. And I feel like it was in his prime, and I played against the guy, and I had nothing but the utmost respect for him. And we just saw him. Now he's boxing now. A few years removed from the game. And I just don't want that to be Saquon. I'm not to say he's going to be boxing afterwards, but a guy that has so much potential and look like he could be that 10,000 yard, for a career mark, which only certain running backs have touched, and very few have touched in recent years because of how the game goes and how the position is being valued, and just injuries that happen at that position, which no matter what they do to try to safeten up the game, there's just some positions, running back, linebacker, you just really can't do too much about, that beating that the lower body takes from the amount of carries and touches and the amount of force that they put, because they're so explosive and they're so powerful. And you look at Saquon's legs, and people are like, oh yeah, they'll run through guys. I also see some powerful legs that's going to put his body in some very stressful situations because he's so powerful and explosive, and his balance is so awesome. And that limits you. That's why certain guys can play forever. And then everybody's built differently. I'm a guy who was injured a lot in my career. And you get somebody like Rondé Barber, who played 16, 17 seasons and didn't miss a game. Ray Lewis, you throw him in there too. He played so many years without missing a game. Saquon's not that guy. Saquon is a guy who has injury problems. Saquon's going to be like me. My neck hurts right now. And I just slept the wrong way. I haven't hit nobody in 6 years, Ryan. My neck hurt.
Welcome to my life, dude.
But then you look at it, and it's like, that's why I'm such a advocate for players getting paid.
Yeah,
because
it's a sad thing. He's not necessarily a victim of the Giants. He's a victim of the market. He's a victim of the position that he plays, right? When you look at your car and you get one of those service deals, right? There's a reason why they don't cover windshield wipers. It's a wear item, right? The running back position, the linebacker positions, those are wear items, and they're far less likely to be covered, right, with the money and backed by the money than any other position, right? And part of what killed it is Miles Sanders taking a $6 million a year deal, right? It's just, you can look back to Derrick Henry, right? You can look back to Zeke's deal. You can look back to any number of different ones that were huge only a few years ago. But I think the league has recognized, hey, we can't pay those guys, especially in those second, maybe even third contracts, that kind of money, because they're going to fall off. They're a wear item. They're going to start to give out. And that's what you saw with Zeke. That's what you saw with King Henry. He's not the same running back that he was when he signed that deal. And so the league has wised up a little bit from that standpoint. And B, they are monetarily, I think, undervaluing, because guys like Miles Sanders have signed those low deals. So now, Saquon, Josh Jacobs, these guys, Tony Pollard, I think Pollard is the only one that signed the tag, right? And Saquon and Josh Jacobs, those guys have every other back in the league and some other players beyond that saying, hold strong, man, hold strong, stick it out. You've got to do what you can to get this market back up to where it should be. But I don't know that one or two guys is going to do that when you've got the entire league valuing a position a certain way.
And there's the old saying, don't hate the player, hate the game. And right now, that's what the game is.
I hate that saying.
I just want to let you know that I should never be the one who ever used that saying, because I know I make it sound so bad, but it's okay. It's okay. But but Ryan, just what you're saying too, they have support around the league, both former players and current players. But just from looking at the perspective of what the Giants need to do for long term, and you guys hate when I say it, and I say it every single week. This proves to me that they're not playing for right now in the considerable future. They're looking at the big picture. There's a reason why they signed Daniel Jones to a contract where they have it out in 2 years. So if it's not working, they can still build for their future. They
were going to do that same thing with Saquon, though. He was going to have an out in 2 years, right? He was going to sign a 2-year deal, and they just couldn't come to. They both thought that they had moved enough, and they still weren't there. And so at the end of the day, it falls apart. Now we gotta remember, Saquon's not playing for nothing, right? They're paying the man $10 million, $10.1 million for one season. That's a half a million dollars every game, every week. The guy gets $500,000, right? I have to work 4 years to make that amount of money, and he makes it in a fucking week, right? So let's not say that the guy's getting totally screwed here. He's got a contract. It's just a 1 year, $10 million deal, and we've got to figure out what we want to do with it after the fact. I think the problem is that the other players, part of the problem is that the other players in the league, they're not necessarily supporting him. They're in his ear, telling them what he wants, telling him what they want him to say, what they want him to talk about. Or you got Shady McCoy saying, hey, maybe what you ought to do is sign that deal and then just be hurt, right? Get your money, but be hurt, right? Don't play any of the games. My calf hurts, right? My quad's off. My knee's not right, stuff like that. So I don't know. I feel like I
can do that.
Right? Seriously, call your boy up. I'll do it. But I mean, at the end of the day, what this boils down to is, to what degree is Saquon willing to push out the other voices, listen to what's deep inside of him, right? Which I believe is team first, and say, all right, we're going to put this aside. I'm going to go back with these guys that have been my brothers for a while, right? And we're going to have some success, and we're going to see what that success does for my career down the line. That's what I'm hoping for.
Then I expect it to be him coming out, having an amazing season, and then the Giants might be taking him, signing him to a year-by-year contract.
Yep.
That's what's going to end up. That's what's going to end up happening. And I know JC didn't like to hear that.
Look at his face.
Look, he does not. But I'm sorry. Like, once you hit 20, he's 26 years old right now. Once you start hitting 27, 28 years old, there's new shiny toys coming out of college that are going to be quicker than he will be.
Yeah, for sure. It happens to everybody. Zeke, Henry, I was just talking about it before. Yeah. The advent of a long-term deal is done. Right, we all know that there's no long-term deal coming for Saquon Barkley unless he manages to do a tag and trade, and some other team is willing to give him 2 or 3 years down the line. The 2 or 3 year deal that he's going to get down the line is not going to be what the 2 or 3 year deal was going to be on the table this year.
And I don't think the problem is the $10 million for this year. It's obviously because I think what the Giants were doing was he was giving him the guaranteed money of what the tags were going to be. Because remember, the tag number goes down for the running back next season. So that's where the money is. The Giants were sitting there going to give him, I think it was 18. It was 20. I think it was 22. It's not there. And like Daniel's contract, 36 million of it is guaranteed, and he's only making $9 million of regular salary.
Word on the street is that the number was up to 23.
Okay.
Now, I heard that, and I was like, okay, I can't do nothing. I can't do nothing for Saquon now. I'm like, if that was the number that he got offered, he turned that down.
So that's what I'm saying. I think he's got. I wonder how good the voices in his ear are, because that seems like It seems like a deal that beats even the franchise tag. But
I'm awaiting
out of the room.
I'm awaiting a Latrell Sprewell like comment, like I got to feed my family, and I'm just JC. You remember that, right? You remember
the truth though.
Latrell?
Okay.
Okay, good.
Can we talk about anyone else on the New
Yeah,
York Giants roster?
I know.
What?
We're done. We're done.
No, it's a one-man team. It's not 52
Actually,
guys.
I want to throw something else at you. We definitely could transition off of this.
Can we talk about Saquon Barkley for a little bit? Can we?
I think we gave
Maybe
him
I'm going to ask you a question about Saquon Barkley. That'll be one more.
And then I'm waiting for Dion and Pat Hanlon to come over here so I can kick us off the line. Guys, I also wanted to ask a question about the health of Leonard Williams. And I think this is something that's not talked about. You know, he's one of the elder statesmen. Again, $32 million price tag on him for this season. How important is his health for this defense this upcoming year, knowing it's a more difficult schedule than it was last year? And he's, now Dexter has a new contract. This is a big thing. This is something that not a lot of people are really talking about, but Leonard, if Leonard doesn't play well, he can get cut for next year. They'll cut him.
I see him actually playing a lot less than he played last year. And he's actually been a very durable guy his entire career. Yep. If I'm not mistaken, last year was the first time he actually missed a game in his whole career. So I don't expect him to be a guy that's going to be in the tub. I expect him to get those play percentage drop down to around 60%. Because you got Nacho in there now. Then you also have A'Shawn Robinson in there. And then if Azeez Ojulari and Thibodeau can stay healthy, now that's when you start getting Leonard Williams out of certain situations, and you get those young guys in certain passing situations, and you get a lot of speed. So adding Nacho and A'Shawn Robinson to that depth, and then having the younger guys that maybe missed this year and guys that could have added depth last year because they were hurt, they're also healthy too. So knock on wood, hopefully nobody gets hurt. People start going down in front of Leonard Williams. That's when you start questioning Leonard Williams' health, because that's when his play percentage is going to increase. I was on a pitch count when I was in New York, my 3 years in New York. I hated it. But I think that was a reason why my years I wouldn't say healthy because I was beat up my last year, but I survived my first 2 years in New York. I was able to play 65 to 72% of the plays and not play 100% of the downs, not play as much special teams as I did in the past, and I was able to survive a couple of seasons. I see Leonard Williams fitting into that, dropping his playing time and increasing his productivity. Yep. And I'm going to use Brandon Graham from the Philadelphia Eagles as an example. Nice. He probably played under 50% of the snaps. He had double-digit sacks this year because he came in and he was healthy. He lasted the whole entire year. And when they got to the playoffs, you saw that defensive line flourish besides the Super Bowl.
It's addition by subtraction, right? You take away some of the snaps, but you get better quality. It's less quantity, but better quality out of that. But, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, the issue with Leonard Williams is that by all accounts, this year, he's overpaid, right? He's not worth $32 million a year, right? But that's what he's going to be paid. So I think for all intents and purposes, if we've decided as an organization that we're going to pay Leonard Williams what he's due, and let's make no mistake, he is due that money. They've kicked it down the curb enough, and now finally it's time to pay the piper. He is due that money. He's earned that money. But thinking about how much we're paying him, if we've decided that we're going to pay him that money, everybody just needs to shut up about it, right? There's not going to be any conversation, or shouldn't be any conversation about, well, is he worth $32 million? No, nobody is, right? Nobody in that position.
Somebody thinks you are if they're going to pay, if they,
they owe him that money. If they want him to play on this team, they have to pay that amount because that's what they've promised him. It's the whole value versus worth thing, right? He's not his value is at $32 million, but we're not going to get $32 million of production out of the guy this year. I mean, that's ridiculous. So at the end of the day, we got to put the money aside. If we're willing to pay him $32 million because that's what he's owed, then okay, cool. He's going to be on the field. His production is going to be what it's going to be. It's not going to be worth $32 million, but that's what we told him we're going to pay him. He's still on our team, so that's what it is. If we don't want to pay that money, then we've got to jettison the guy. We've got to either trade him out, we've got to reduce, we just got to cut him, whatever we need to do. But we're not willing to do that because we need his healthy production. He is a great player on this team, and he's part of one of the best 1-2 combinations of defensive tackles in the game.
I think JC's tired of talking about money on this podcast for today.
Yeah, it might be.
I think he's done.
Not at all. Not at all. Listen, at the end of the day, a lot of problems in this world starts because of money.
You're not wrong. The root of all evil.
Women and money.
And sometimes at the same time.
There's not too many women in these conversations, right? So it has to be about money.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't. The other question I had to bring up to you guys too is how the secondary is going to look this year. You know, again, no Julian Love back out there. Xavier McKinney is going to have to really step up into a leadership role on this defense as well. And you know, he showed some great signs last year, not only on his on the field play, but how he was in the locker room. The guys love him. They all rally behind him. They said he was how much of a loss he was in the locker room last year when he got hurt. Your take, boys, both of you guys, your take on Xavier McKinney and the role that he has to play this year in this defense.
Well, he's the captain, right? He's the signal caller. You know, it's very rare that you see a safety calling the signals and calling out the defense and leading the other 10 men on the field. But he did that. And you saw a decline, I feel like, in defensive performance when he was out last year. And then you saw when he came back how his presence was missed. You get a healthy Xavier McKinney, he's going to get a contract in the middle of the year. That's the type of player that I'm expecting to see out of 29 for the New York Giants. I think he's a tremendous player. I think he athletically, he is, the way he flips his hips and can cover sideline to sideline. I think his smarts and his leadership capabilities is going to, you know, have him be one of the top tacklers in the league and one of the best playmakers in the NFC East on the back end. And I look to who else is going to be back there with him, right? Is it Dane Belton? Who is the other guy that's going to be playing safety? Right. Who is going to be the other guy that's going to play safety and fill in the huge shoes that Julian Love left open?
Yeah, I'm honestly far less concerned about Xavier McKinney. I think he will step into that role. I think he's a natural leader in that regard. He's got a year in the system. He's been wearing the green dot. He knows what he's all about, and I think he will be able to lead this defense. But it's JC, to your point, it's who's going to be with him. I mean, we're talking about taking Nick McLeod and putting him back at safety, right? Dane Belton's putting him back there. We got, is it Bobby McCain, Brian McCain? I can't remember his
Bobby
first name.
McCain.
Bobby McCain from the Commanders. So I mean, look, there's going to be competition in that position, and the person that's going to be next to him, I think, is going to benefit from his play on the field. We just have to see what we've got. Right. And I think we are in a better position. I think there's going to be less stress on the safety position because we're in a better position from a cornerback perspective. If we can keep Adoree Jackson healthy, if we can keep, we've got Tay Banks now. That was a huge addition to the secondary. If we can get Robinson maybe back healthy, after those two guys, I guess it does kind of drop off a little bit, and we have to see what we've got. But if those defensive back positions or the cornerback positions specifically keep or step up to the plate and play to their capabilities, then it makes it a little bit easier on the safeties. They don't have to have as much pressure put on them to keep the lid on other offenses.
I'm going to throw another question out here, and I think it's a real good one to ask. If you're the Giants, do you bring back Landon Collins?
If injuries happen, absolutely. Especially if something happens to the guys we listed earlier. Anything happened to Xavier McKinney, Dane Belton, Bobby McElwain, anybody that gets hurt, you need somebody who has experience, somebody that has played some good football. You don't need to be bringing in too many young guys in the middle of the season because you need somebody to play. They brought in Landon last year, and he was a playmaker from the beginning. He had that incredible play against Minnesota where he tipped that ball from Hawkinson, right? Yep. He tipped that ball from Hawkinson. It was a great pass, a better defensive play. Yep. And you expect things like You expect things like that from a player like Landon Collins. And I thought he was going to play a little bit more linebacker. He basically played DB, and I expected them to bring him back to possibly play that nickel coverage linebacker type position. But look, the Giants brought in Bobby Okereke. They brought in somebody who can anchor that linebacker spot, and then they have other guys who can kind of be, sidekicks to Bobby Okereke and fill in that void that a Landon Collins left. Because let's not get it twisted, Landon Collins is a tremendous football player in the NFL. He's a little past his prime, going into, I think, his 9th year would be this year.
Yeah, I think that's
which
right.
is crazy because he was a rookie when I was in New York. Now that's dating my old ass, right? And I just look, who is going to be the guy at the end, fourth quarter? Who's going to be the guy that the Giants rely on to make plays?
Yep.
That's who we have to figure out. It was Dexter Lawrence last year. He did it game in and game out. He showed us that he's one of the forces in the NFL along that defensive line. Who else? Because the Giants definitely need more players than just Dexter Lawrence.
Sure.
That's going to show up late in games. That's going to be consistent. Get that ball tipped up. Get the ball into the defense's hands, or get it out the offense's hands in a timely area of the game, late in games, overtime, whatever the case may be. You need more than just Dexter Lawrence. Who's the other guy for the New York Giants?
I have an idea about that. Can I tell you who I think it's going to be?
I know the name. Go ahead.
I think it's going to be number 5. I think it's going to be Kayvon Thibodeaux.
Yeah, I have. I literally was just about to say it too. I'm sorry about to say, because Kayvon had an amazing end of the season last year. Look at that game against Washington. He stepped up. Yeah. When remember, he was hurt the first part of the year, and it took him a little while to find his way. About halfway through the season, he got there. And by the way, don't forget with Landon, the big play he had against the Colts. He had that pick six.
Yeah, pick six.
Yep, he had the pick six. And if that was his last game at MetLife Stadium, what a memory for him. You know what I mean? That's how you want to go out, man. Like get that pick, run it all in, have the whole crowd here, because that day that place was rocking. They knew it. If they win, they're in, and they knew it. And wow. Guys, last thing I want to do with you guys here tonight, I sent it over in our little map out. Obviously, we're all football fans. We're all Giant fans. And I got to ask you, JC, I'll start with you. What were your favorite, like 1 or 2, maybe 3 Giant games you remember watching? Whether you were playing or no, whether you're okay, let me rephrase that. I have to rephrase it because it's you, because you were playing. Either you played in, or you have so much history with the team. What was your favorite 1 or 2 games that you can remember?
Well, definitely my favorite game watching was the Super Bowl with the David Tyree helmet catch.
Oh God, yeah.
Oh, that was 2000.
That was crazy.
2008, so 2007 season, right? So 2008. And I remember this very vividly. I was in my apartment on my college campus in Wisconsin, and we had a 3-story, 4-bedroom lofted apartment, right? And two of my roommates were up on the 3rd floor in a loft area watching the game. And I was we call it the dungeon, because I was on the 1st floor and I had blackout curtains, and I used to always have the lights off and watch TV in the dark. So they used to call it the dungeon. So I was watching the game in the dungeon, and there was like a 6-second, 7-second delay from my TV to the upstairs TV, right? So first of all, the play, Eli got out of 4 sacks that play. The most unathletic quarterback, just throwing guys who, are huge human beings. He's throwing guys off of him, scrambles out the pocket, and I'm just sitting there like, oh my God, I'm just like, oh my God. And then he throws a ball, and it's just like a silence, I could imagine the stadium was just like the breath, like, oh my gosh, he just throws the ball up in the middle of the field, something you don't do. David Tyree, who has the case of the drops, right? He comes in, and Harrison, Rodney Harrison, who's one of the better safeties in the NFL. You thinking he smacks the ball, it gets stuck to David Tyree's head, and I'm just like, oh, I'm screaming top of my lungs, oh, and I hear my guys upstairs saying, what happened? What happened? I run all the way upstairs. I say, watch this.
Nice.
And it happened. So I end up watching the play twice in real time because of delay in my house. And I just remember, like, my heart was beating out my chest. It was the greatest Super Bowl play I've ever seen. The greatest play, the greatest, wow, this happened. Like, you know, and for me, watching, that was an all-time great moment for the New York Giants football franchise. Of course, everybody knows that. But I just remember that very vividly. And then I fast forward to 2016, me playing the Baltimore Ravens game, fourth and goal. I made a huge play. Shortly after that, Odell Beckham had this slant, and he just clipped it. And the place was just going crazy.
I remember that.
Such a fun game to play in. And, you know, it's always when you contribute and you make a great big play that becomes one of my favorite plays and my favorite games. And look, the Giants, storied franchise, me playing, that has to be hands down one of my biggest plays that I ever made for the New York Giants. And just like the doing it at home in front of these fans who will boo you when you're not good, but then they will cheer very loudly when you are good. Yeah. And those are my top two moments, one being in the Super Bowl, me watching, and then the other one, me being a player.
Yeah.
Ryan, what do you got from your playing days? I mean,
my playing days were a little different from his. It wasn't actually in any kind of sporting event, you know. But anyway, never mind that now.
That was Madden. It was Madden, right?
I had a great game. In Madden. That was good fun. That's good stuff. I think my favorite moment as a Giants fan, and I got to admit, I came into it a little bit later, right? I grew up in Houston. I got here in like the early 2000s. Started watching Giants football in like 2001. 2002, and I've been a diehard fan ever since. But I think my favorite moment as a Giants fan was the game before, JC, the game that you were talking about with the helmet catch. It was the NFC Championship game in Green Bay.
Mm-hmm. I remember that. It was so cold.
No one has won in Green Bay besides Michael Vick at that point, right?
No one has won, and no one has kicked the game-winning field goal in that environment. And it was negative 23 degrees in the pregame. I mean, people were like Coughlin, I saw something afterwards. He was like, should we even be out here? You know, I mean, so it was one of those things where it was just, and it was Favre, right? It was like the storied franchise, right? We went into Green Bay. It was cold as a witch's titty in a brass bra. We went in there and had that game. And one of the first plays is Brandon Jacobs putting his head down and trucking a dude, and it set the tone for the rest of the game. It was absolutely amazing. And to have it end on Lawrence Tynes' game-winning field goal, that's something that had never been done. It was a 43-yard field goal, never been done. I felt it. My heart stopped beating when he kicked that ball, and it started back up when it went through the posts, right? I almost literally passed out because that sent us to the Super Bowl. And it was the first time in my Giants fandom that I got to see my team going to the Super Bowl. And it was probably the best moment in sports that I've ever witnessed. It was amazing.
I remember that. That was actually one of mine because I have a few of them, and I'm going to take you guys back in the Wayback Machine. But I think it was 1998. I'm going to give you a couple of them. Back in 1998, the Denver Broncos were an undefeated team. And the Giants were having a tough season. They had Kent Graham as their starting quarterback, and the old Eddie.
No idea who that is.
I was looking at your face. I'm like, Kent Graham. And I was like, Jason's like, yeah. I'm like, he's like, I got no idea who it is.
I got no idea who that
guy is. Kent Graham led the Giants to upset the undefeated defending champion Denver Broncos to stop their perfect season.
Wow.
And I just remember that. I remember where I was.
Elway? Was that Elway at the helm?
That was Elway. And you're just like, you even remember the Sports Center headline tonight. We have some shocking news here in the NFL.
What?
The New York Giants have beaten the undefeated Denver Broncos. I have that one. And then I have a couple, obviously, with Eli. It's back in, I think it was in the 2005 or 2006 season. They were down 20 something points to the Philadelphia Eagles going into the fourth quarter. And Eli rallied the team. I remember watching it with a bunch of Eagles fans. And and all of a sudden they came back and won that game in overtime on a field goal. Eli erased a 20 something point lead in the fourth quarter.
Wow.
And I'm just like,
and you didn't get stabbed. You didn't get shanked at all. That's crazy.
well, I wasn't like in Philadelphia. I was down.
Okay.
I was at a sports bar in Florida, and there was a bunch of Eagles fans there. And then like, I don't
soft.
Yeah, softer.
Soft Philadelphia.
Softer.
Those
in Jersey. And
they don't have the street. They don't have the street cred, for it.
Right.
One of the other ones was during the second Super Bowl run. I remember seeing Brandon Jacobs over at Stop and Shop. Like, this was my first year covering the team. I saw him over there. I was like, great game against Atlanta. You're looking forward to Green Bay. He goes, because remember, they lost to Green Bay that year early in the season. I think it was like the second loss of the year, third loss of the year. And Brandon looked at me and goes, we got something for those boys on Sunday. And literally they came out and knocked them out. But that's not really, that's one of the memories, but also that San Francisco 49er game that Eli just took a pounding on, but still was managing to come back, and they ended up beating the Niners. And then the last one for me here is, I think it was 2014 or 2015. It was a Sunday night football game. I was covering, it was my first time ever covering Sunday night football, and it was the Giants and the Niners, and Eli led the game-winning drive. And I had never been in the building like that for an Eli game-winning drive before. And it's just something to me, as they always say, he's your quarterback. Eli has been my quarterback. And watching, being in the building and being able to cover it and then go talk to him about it after the game in the press conference, seeing your quarterback do a game-winning drive like that, you felt that magic there. I remember Ian O'Connor, who's now with ESPN, and he's written books about the Giants and the Yankees. He wrote a great article the next day of, no matter what happens with the Giants, Eli Manning will always be Mr. Fourth Quarter in New York.
Yeah. And there's something about that. You use the right word. It's magical, right? Because the possibility is always there. And so you never stop feeling it. You never stop like rooting for it and giving it, whatever emotional energy you have, right? Throwing it over there. It's also one of the reasons why it's a fucking heartbreaker to be a Giants fan sometimes, because they show you that success and then they rip it away from you. But anyway, that's how we earn our fandom, right? We're there for the low times as well as for the good times. So, but it really is magical. And it's something about being a Giants fan. It's just really cool.
And the other thing too, I remember back when 2016, when the Giants played the Cowboys at the Meadowlands, it was a little bit of a snowy day. They cleaned the field off and everything else like that.
It was cold as hell.
It was cold. But I got to tell you, that was the closest thing at that point in time for me that felt like such a big game feeling. Because the Giants had a great record. The Cowboys were having a great record. And it felt like a heavyweight battle. And you didn't want to get up from your seat. You didn't want to change the channel. And you were on the field for that one, JC. So I can only imagine what it was like for you. But that was the definition of a heavyweight battle, especially on a Sunday night in December, knowing that playoff positioning was on the line for two good teams. That's my last Giants memory. I know I threw a lot out there, but
he said, does anybody have a Giants memory?
Yeah, one or two.
I gave 1 and 1.
Yeah.
He gave 5.
He gave like 7.
Yeah, but you got to remember. No, listen, you got to remember. My 3 or 4 equal, because you played it. That equaled it, but that's okay. If you guys got more, throw it out there.
Yeah,
I'm gonna tell you about a memory that I didn't have because somebody wanted to go on a boat trip. Some position group wanted to go on a boat trip.
Oh no!
And that Eli magic that you talk about, I was expecting it. Yeah. I was anticipating it.
Yeah.
I couldn't wait to see it, and I saw it. And it was amazing. And then passes dropped through the hands of one of the greatest wide receivers I ever seen play football in OBJ.
Yeah.
It could, with the memory that could have.
Oh, what could have been.
JC
We
can't look
went
at
on and played Dallas and beat them for the third time.
Better to have loved and lost than never to have
JC can never look at a boat at the same way.
No, never.
Never again. He'll never look at a speedboat the same way. What was the reaction to that in the locker
To the
room?
boat trip?
Yeah, this is something we never talked about. I'm now very curious to know what the reaction of the players in the statute of limitations is over on this. So now we can talk about it. What was the reaction of the locker room to that?
So people really didn't care, you know, and I was me and Victor Cruz, we were travel buddies, so we would like always sit by each other on the plane. Like they assigned us together, the two Latin Jersey guys together, I guess. I don't know. But Victor's my guy, so we would always, you know, shoot the shit all the time. And, you know, I look forward to sitting down and kind of seeing like what happened on offense today. And, you know, we share stories, we talk about football, non-football, whatever. So Vic's like, yo, we going to Vegas. It was after our last game, I guess it was against Washington, if I'm not mistaken. And we were on our way back home. And he was like, yeah, me and the guys going to Vegas. And I was like, just have 13 at work on Tuesday. Because I think we had, Monday off.
Yeah.
Like, just have Odell on work on Tuesday. Please, bro. Please, right? So fast forward, I guess a day or two later, the picture, the infamous boat picture comes out, and it says they were in Miami. My first comment was, well, at least they didn't go to Vegas. That was my whole thought process with that. Miami's a lot closer. That West Coast to East Coast trip is terrible, right? And then everybody showed up to practice. No one was late. No one looked like they were hungover. No one looked like they were dehydrated. Everybody showed up to work, had a great week of practice, and I thought we were done. And then when I knew we weren't done and we were doomed in Green Bay, first of all, it was like 10 degrees, maybe colder than that. And I go outside and for warm-ups, I come right back in because it's too cold. I'm not about to be outside in that freezing cold trying to get warmed up. But I'm mentally tough. Like I'm not going to fake like I'm not cold, like it's freaking cold, right? I go back in, now I'm on like Instagram or whatever I'm doing just to buy a little bit of time because I just did a little bit more warm-up inside. And I see my teammates, the entire receiving room outside with their shirts off. Oh, fuck, we're screwed. We're screwed. I've never seen them do that before. Ryan Shazier was famously known for doing that in Pittsburgh, but he's a little crazy. The dude don't got all his hair, He played linebacker. I don't expect that from maybe OBJ, but not Victor Cruz. What are we doing? What are we doing here, guys? And that's when I knew this is not okay. I thought all week we were fine. We were good. But when I saw that, I was like, all right, we're doing too much here, guys. And then I've seen Odell Beckham Jr. make the most spectacular catches. I've never really seen him drop anything that was in his hands. I watched this guy drop 3 passes, 2 for touchdowns for sure. And I watched Eli turn it on, and then the Hail Mary from Aaron Rodgers, and the Giants been sorry ever since.
That's it. That's it. The curse. Cursed. That's all right. We got the mojo lifted this year.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Well, we'll definitely see what happens. Guys, you're listening and watching the Big Blue Report with Jonathan Casillas, Randy Zelia, Ryan Darlington. We appreciate you guys checking us out every single week. Guys, this time next week when we record the show, we'll be in camp mode. We'll be in camp mode. Ryan will be making his debut on Friday.
Yeah. Well, Tuesday. I'll go to the 1st, August 1st. Right?
Yes, I thought you were going on the 28th as well. No, you're not going on the 28th. Oh, yeah, so you're going
to the 1st. Yep.
Yeah, so okay, August 1st. Glad we're working this out on the air. Perfect time to do it.
Oh, for all my fans, right? Yeah. Want to come, whatever.
So August 1st, he will be there. I'm going to be there Wednesday, Thursday, Friday to start camp. JC's going to be there as well. If you're there, come on down, say hello to JC. I think you're signing autographs one of the days too. I saw that, right?
Yeah, August 3rd.
Legendary.
Yes. Legendary. It said Giants Legends, and there it is.
Giants
Jonathan Casillas.
Legend. I think
Boom.
that's how we ought to announce him for the show from here on out. Giants Legend.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's it.
Jonathan Casillas.
Starting next week, it's going to be the 2-time Super Bowl champion, former defensive captain, and Giants legend.
Yeah,
that's right.
That's
good.
good.
I think we should make that your ringtone now. This is Giants legend, Jonathan Casillas' phone.
I just got my fingers crossed that they spell my name right. That's not cool.
That's not fun. That's not cool.
Yeah, well, I looked at the roster, man, of all the people who were signing autographs, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this seems like it's a shorter open camp for the fans than it's been in the past. It's only like maybe like 10 days. Usually they did like almost halfway through the month of August. So maybe
you would know better than me. I don't even know the list that you're talking about. I just go because they say, "Hey, JC, you want to make some money this day?" I said, "Of course,
yeah,
of course. Sure. I want to make some money. I'll be there. Be there early too."
yeah. Not only will I be there, I'll be there early. And if you need me to stay later, if you want to throw a couple extra in there, I'll stay a little later too.
Work hourly after a certain point. Sure.
Yeah. Well, not for nothing. Some of the guys that were that slated to be there, because I know Bradshaw's gonna be there for the day, Jacobs is gonna be there one day.
Ooh.
Some of these guys, we might have to put them in uniform. So
Let's hope not.
No, I hope not. Well, listen, you see what Brandon Jacobs looks like right now? He looks like he could still take some guys.
I'm sure.
Yeah. Hey, let's probably play left tackle now. Maybe not.
Let's see if we can sign him up to the Big Blue Report. Let's bring him on the show.
Him and Ahmad Bradshaw will be the guys I would love to have on here with us to talk old school Giants football. But I do have your trivia question.
Oh boy.
Let's see if you. So obviously, we were talking about the 2008 and 2011 Super Bowls before, and we know that the big three running backs for the 2017 was Brandon Jacobs, Derek Ward, and Ahmad Bradshaw. And two of those guys were back for the second Super Bowl against the Patriots in 2011. Who was the third running back besides Ahmad Bradshaw and Brandon Jacobs? See if you guys can get this.
In 2011,
who was the third running back? Because, in the 2008 Super Bowl, it was Bradshaw, Derek Ward, and Brandon Jacobs.
Yeah, it's the three-headed monster.
The three-headed monster. Who was the third running back? 2011.
This isn't another Orleans Darkwa kind of thing. I think he was after that.
Yeah, Orleans Darkwa.
After.
I love Orleans.
I don't know the guy. I've never said a word to him, but I love him for his name, if nothing else.
Just a quick side note about him. It's amazing on how he led the Giants in rushing in 2017 and never got another snap in the NFL.
Yeah.
It baffles me.
That's crazy.
That's nuts. All right. You're talking to a guy that can't remember what he had for breakfast the other day.
Let's see if you can get this.
I feel like I played them that year too. I should know this.
Was it? No, wouldn't have been.
You can take a shot, man. It's not one.
No, there was a guy that had come over from the Patriots. He was a pass catching back.
You're thinking Shane Vereen.
He came with me in 15.
Okay.
He was a nice guy too. I liked him.
Give us a hint.
Yeah.
I don't know how to give you this hint. I can just give it to you at this point. If you guys
What's his number?
Oh crap! That it doesn't say here. Let me see what his number was. Hold on.
So you don't even know who it was either. Then.
I have who it is.
What kind of bullshit is this?
I know who it is. I just don't know his number he was wearing because it wasn't listed there. Okay.
Give us his initials.
DW. He was number 28.
Derek Ward? No, that's the other guy.
No, you haven't. It's Ware.
Yes, DJ Ware, ladies and gentlemen.
Ware.
Yeah, circle gets the square. Ryan Darlington, ladies and gentlemen.
So who is the guy from 07?
07 was Derek Ward. And in 2011, it was
Oh!
DJ Ware.
Bro, I knew it the whole time, but I could have sworn that's who you just said. I was like, it's Ware. I know it's Ware, but he just said Ware 07.
Where?
Not the same guy.
Yeah, he just says where. JC goes,
Man.
where?
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 Damn it, man. Damn it, man.
That was a good question, though. That's a good
question.
That's good
Damn
stuff.
it, man.
I'm going to do one a week. I'm going to do one a
Yes.
week.
All right,
So,
man.
Good stuff.
well, hey, guys, thanks for tuning into the Big Blue Report. We appreciate it. Follow us on social media. JC's on Instagram and Twitter. I'm on Instagram and Twitter as well. Ryan is on Facebook. So I think that's – did you add anything that I don't know about, right?
Just the Tinder account, but I don't think we should be advertising that here. That's
Oh, Lord. All right.
And on that note, ladies and gentlemen,
Hope everybody checks us out on social media. Ladies, I hope you check them out on Tinder.
Yes,
and
indeed.
we will see you next week here on the Big Blue Report with Jonathan Casillas. I'm Randy Zelia. That's Ryan Darlington. We'll see you in camp.
Woo-hoo.
Giants football, baby. We'll see you next week.